I'm Kan, your storyteller. Last time we talked about what the components of a really good story are. In this episode, I shall be discussing a little bit about what we should be learning from the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macao Bridge story and how it can inspire us in our daily lives. The way this class will work is that I will first share some of my reflections on the story in Chinese, although I will mention a few key phrases and words in English. And then my British colleague David will discuss the same ideas, but he will speak totally in English and will use some of the phrases I will have mentioned. This should be excellent listening practice for you all, as well as a nice reminder of how stories and miracles are still being created in China. 苏全科仅从一张古桥照片中便找到了攻克建造难题的方案。这或许有些言过其实，毕竟如此庞大的工程并不仅仅是一个方案就可以造就的。并且从技术层面来说，港珠澳大桥的工程难题也绝非是来自古人造桥经验的灵感可以解决的。In a technical sense, the engineering problems of the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macao Bridge were not solved by direct inspiration from the technology of ancient Chinese. 当然，这个故事也传达了一些重要的事实。首先，这个故事让我们见识了建造港珠澳大桥是一项何其巨大的挑战。First of all, it gets across what a massive challenge the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macao Bridge was. 其次，苏全科深知这项工程在中国桥梁建筑史上的分量。据苏先生在采访中说，他对中国古桥十分着迷，他经常提到赵州桥。这也是我们用英语讲中国故事丛书中的故事之一。We know from interviews that Su has given that he has a deep fascination with ancient Chinese bridges. 换句话说，苏全科心中明白，港珠澳大桥可以让中国回到赵州桥时期的巅峰，站在世界桥梁技术创新前沿，并用建筑奇迹震惊世界。Astonishing the world with construction wonders. 所以说，如果我们仅从字面意思解读这个故事，这座大桥只是解决了一个技术问题便得以建成，那可就大错特错了。So if we take the story too literally, we will be reading this story incorrectly. 然而，当我们自己讲这个故事的时候，我们得取其精华 ，extract its essence， 也就是大桥修建过程中一定有许多会议要开，许多问题要解决。但在我们老祖先的精神当中，即便技术简陋，也缺乏工程知识，他们依然在不断克服各种挑战。在古代桥梁的建造中，那些建造者克服的困难，一点儿也不比港珠澳大桥所面临的少。The kind of challenges faced and overcome by the builders of many ancient bridges were, for the time, as impressive in terms of achievement as the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macao Bridge. 当然了，还有一点我们要记住，港珠澳大桥仅仅是万千中国桥梁的九牛一毛，它甚至不是中国最长的大桥。这个头衔应当属于2011年完工的丹阳昆山大桥。这些桥梁鲜为人知 ，get less attention， 是因为它们是横跨陆地而不是海洋。事实上，丹阳昆山大桥也只是众多陆地跨度长于港珠澳大桥的桥梁之一。Span across long stretches of land。这些桥梁里，有的你可能都没有听说过。世界最长的丹阳昆山大桥全长超过160公里，并且它处在上海与北京的高铁线路之中。 我曾多次在这条线路上往返，却不曾意识到，在旅程的其中一段里，我居然有机会置身于世界最长的大桥之上。I'm sure many commuters on that train are similarly unaware. 我相信很多旅客和我一样，并不知道这些。归根结底，是因为我们对生活中的便利早已习以为常。We may take our daily conveniences for granted. 每当我们乘坐高铁，我们应该想想这些令人惊叹的工程奇迹，以及像苏圈科这样默默无闻的英雄们。正是他们让我们的出行变得如此便利。当然，不论我们是不是工程师，苏圈科和港珠澳大桥的故事应当成为我们生活中的榜样 role model。 这是一个敢于梦想的故事，敢于梦想 dream big。 有时候我们或许不知如何实现一个目标，但我们应当设立一个志向，然后我们可以像苏圈科还有他的团队那样灵活地向着目标迈进。我们甚至能想象到，当这个工程首次提出的时候，一定有许多反对的声音说，这个工程简直是天方夜谭。There would have been all kinds of objections raised as to why this project would not be possible. 事实上，我们的生活中又何尝没有这样的经历呢？我们应该学会区分意义 objection 与借口 excuse。有时候意义可能来自于真实的障碍，但这些障碍却常常成为人们不愿尝试的借口。我们也可以把这个故事中的道理带进生活中。在制定目标前，我们一定要考虑清楚 think things through carefully。 但我们同样要避免自己的步伐在百般挑刺的心态下停滞不前。We should also not let a mindset of trying to find everything wrong with the project prevent us from taking any action.
The story of the Gangzhou-Ao Daqiao shows us how stories can be developed, even from very recent events. The story of the moment Su Quanke found the solution to the problem of the bridge based on looking at a picture of an ancient Chinese bridge is not the literal truth, in that a massive engineering project like that does not just have one problem or one solution. Also, in a technical sense, the engineering problems of the Gangzhou-Ao Daqiao were not solved by direct inspiration from the technology of ancient China. And yet, despite all this, like all good stories, this story conveys important truths. First of all, it gets across what a massive challenge the Gangzhou-Ao Daqiao was. After all, this bridge is one of the longest, if not the longest, it depends on how you calculate it, bridge across water. Secondly, it reveals another truth, that Su Quanke had a very strong sense of the project's role in the overall sweep of Chinese history. We know from interviews that Su has given that he has a deep fascination with ancient Chinese bridges. He frequently mentions the Zhaozhou Bridge, which is the subject of another of the stories in this book. In other words, Su is acutely aware that with the Gangzhou-Ao Daqiao, China is returning to the place it held back when the Zhaozhou Bridge was built, a nation at the forefront of engineering innovation and able still to astonish the world with construction wonders. So if we take the story too literally, that there was one specific problem which, once overcome, enabled the bridge to be built, we will be reading this story incorrectly. However, when we're telling this story, we need to extract its essence, which is that there would have been many meetings, many problems to solve, but in the background, the spirit of ancient Chinese forebears who were constantly facing and overcoming challenges despite much more basic technology and more limited knowledge of engineering science. The kind of challenges faced and overcome by the builders of many ancient bridges were, for the time, as impressive in terms of achievement as the Gangzhou Ao Daqiao. Of course, another aspect we should bear in mind when telling this story is that the story of the Gangzhou Ao Daqiao that we should remember is that it is actually just one example of a great flurry of large-scale and very impressive bridge building in China. It is not, in fact, even the longest bridge in China. That title goes to the Danyang Kunshan Daqiao Bridge, completed in 2011. The reason why this and many other bridges get less attention is that they are bridges across land rather than being across water. And in fact, this bridge is just one of many that are in fact longer than the Gangzhou Ao Daqiao in China that span across long stretches of land. The reason why there have been many of these kinds of bridges built in recent years is largely because of the development of China's high-speed rail system, or Gaotie. The engineering challenges of building tracks of high-speed trains, connecting citizens from different cities in very short spaces of time, is not just confined to the engineering of the train engines themselves or the actual tracks. What was also necessary was to allow these trains to travel at a high elevation above the level of the ground, where there would be many fewer obstacles. So bridge building on a scale never witnessed in human history was a vital element in being able to establish the high-speed rail network. Many of those bridges you are probably unaware of. This longest that I just mentioned, the Danyang Kunshan Daqiao, stretches more than 160 kilometers, and it is on the high-speed train line between Shanghai and Beijing. I have travelled on that line many times, and to begin with, I was not even aware that during part of my journey I was travelling on the longest bridge in the world. I'm sure many commuters on that train are similarly unaware. All of which goes to show how much we take our daily conveniences for granted. Every time we take a high-speed train, we should spare a thought for all the incredible engineering miracles and unsung heroes whose names, unlike Su Quanke, we may never hear, that have been necessary for the travel conveniences we enjoy every day. So, that is one element that we should bear in mind whenever we're telling this story. Su Quanke should be seen as a representative for all the engineers who make our lives easier in so many ways. Of course, in our own lives, whether or not we are engineers, Su's story and the story of Gangzhou Ao Daqiao should be seen as a model for our own lives. The story of this bridge is the story of dreaming big. Sometimes we may not know exactly how we're going to achieve a particular goal, but we should set ourselves ambitions and then have the flexibility of someone like Su Quanke and his team to be able to think towards a solution. We can imagine that when the project was first proposed, there would have been all kinds of objections raised as to why this project would not be possible. In fact, we are told some of these objections in our story. Sometimes we need to learn to distinguish between objections and excuses. Sometimes an objection can be a real and genuine obstacle, but often objections are just ways that people can excuse themselves from trying hard to complete what they've set out to do. This is also a lesson that we can take into our own lives. We certainly need to think things through carefully before embarking on a project. But we should also not let a mindset of trying to find everything wrong with a project prevent us from taking any action at all.